now. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another PowerHouse Smart education session. We're really excited to have our PowerHouse Smart member, Ryan Cotter from Movement Mortgage. He's got a very exciting program that's going to teach us all how to be financially free. So I am recording this session. We've got a nice group of people that are on this call with us now, but I am going to turn it over to Ryan and he's going to share his screen. So once he does that, if you would like to pin him in the upper corner, you can go ahead and pin him so he is the big focus on your screen instead of all of the other beautiful headshots that you see. Said, just kicking it off. It's 12:03. I'm going to keep the door open a little longer just because we had a little glitch with the link. But Ryan Cotter is going to be presenting this really awesome program. So Ryan, please introduce yourself and let's kick it off here.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Wendy. So my name is Ryan Cotter. I'm the market leader for Movement Mortgage here in Illinois. Glorified way of saying, that I'm a loan officer and have a team that work underneath me. As I'm going to share my screen and go through this presentation, we'll open it up for questions at the end. So if you wouldn't mind just writing down, obviously, any question that you have. I've run into them all. I've given this presentation lots of times. So the answers to your questions we'll have really quick and we can always go back and look at any information that you want to in this presentation. And after the fact, if you want a copy of this presentation, send it out to you in PDF form. So that being said, let's get this underway. And if Wendy, can you just make sure that it is showing the way?
You're sharing it. There we go. Okay, your presentation's up.
Perfect. Okay. I like to kind of give people just a little bit of background to understand where this kind of this concept came from. So right after I bought it, lived in one. It was a 4-unit property. I lived in one, rented out the other 3, and was just shocked to see that actually the rents covered the mortgage. And then I personally rented out a couple of bedrooms in the unit that I was residing in, and I was cash positive. Really quickly, I just saw the benefit of leveraging and using finance to acquire multifamilies and having them be basically assets in a portfolio. Right after that, after I learned this, I bought the building down the street from me. I bought the building right behind me, and then that was kind of just a catalyst to everything that I love doing outside of my day job. So my day job is obviously helping people understand finance, but I've I always got to have a project. I always got to be going to home improvement stores. I don't know why, but it's just my cross to bear. So what I want to educate you on, and then have you educate other people on, is they just don't realize how little you need to get in with these properties and how they how the numbers can work. So I think just a quick little like, hey, did you know this? Did you know this? And showing you some examples will kind of put it to the forefront, because you can say all these details, but without live proof of concept examples, I think it just kind of goes in one ear and out. So I have a bunch of success stories. I've updated to have all my recent success stories included. So that being said, this is what I call educating your clients to financial freedom through multifamily lending. So I specialize in the low down payment. Worked out extremely well in this space. All right. One of the first things that I want to explain is the understanding of underwriting guidelines to leverage this piece, right? So they want to buy that single family or condo first, and I talked about investing in real estate, and like, yeah, I want to get this first one underneath my get that home lined up and then go and buy some multifamily. Well, when you do that, you make that property now is going to be an investment property because you already have your primary residence. And what you do is by making that investment property, you create a barrier to entry, right? So when it's an investment property, you have to put down 25%. That is a really high number that a lot of people can't come up with. And if they do have the ability to come up with it, it's usually not like liquid. It's like they have like it in stocks and they don't want to liquidate their stocks to obviously buy in real estate. So it becomes understand the underwriting principles, where we all have to follow as lenders, and you purchase that first property and you follow this path. So you buy a 4 flat first, you can use the low down payment programs, then you could buy a 3 flat because downsizing properties. They're not going to believe that you're going to move from a single family to a multifamily, even though it could make incredible economic sense. It's just not what people do. And the underwriters, they are the gatekeepers of the money. So you have to play by their rules to get this low down payment, 30-year fixed, great interest rate money. So if you buy the 4 flat first, live in it, what we recommend at the bare minimum is about 18 months. You have to get your feet set. They would believe that you would be downsizing to a 3 unit, right? Because then they would believe that you buy a 2 flat because you're only dealing with one tenant at that point in time. And then, of course, obviously moving to the single family. We call this our 4-3-2-1 steps to financial freedom. And by doing it this way, you will allow yourself to use the low down payment programs on each one of these purchases, which will be far less than if you try to buy one single family and one investment property with 25% down. So, in our calculations, and I'm going to show you like some examples that fit in this situation. We have a 4-unit property. So as I mentioned, you rent out 3 units, you live in the 4th, and what we see majority of the time is that these 3 units cover the monthly obligation, right? Now, when you move from this to this 3 flat that you're going to be purchasing, now this 4th unit is going to make you super cash positive, right? Which is important because when we see 3 flats where you live in one and you rent out the other 2, on an average we see that about 75% of the monthly obligation, right? But keep in mind, you still have the excess income coming off the 4 unit. So that positive cash flow covers the difference and you're still living obligation free between the 2 properties. And then rental income, statistically, it covers about 50% of the mortgage payment. But now you have positive cash flow from the 4 unit and you have positive cash flow from the 3 unit that covers your shortfall on your 2 flat. And then last, single family, you are on the hook for 100% of that obligation, but now you should have positive cash flow from the 4 flat, from the 3 flat, from the 2 flat, which covers the total monthly obligation. So what we've shown you here is how forever, how to have assets being paid down by tenants. And at some point in time, if you set these up on 30-year fix, 20-year fix, whatever kind of payment plan you're set up on, you will own all 4, free and clear, and somebody else would have paid them for you. Now, I tell everybody, this is not a get rich quick scheme. This is a get wealthy over time plan that, if you go on the internet, there's about $1 billion. The millionaire next door is two of the books that I always recommend that people read as they get more familiar with this. So that's our 4, 3, 2, 1 steps to financial freedom. Now, here's going to be some examples of people that have made different amounts in annual income, just to show you don't have to be somebody making 6 figures to pull this off. It's all about what you make, and in those spaces, properties that you're looking for, right? So these are examples. The names have been changed to protect the innocent, but each one of these people initially came to me looking to buy a single family or condo. I could tell that they had the kind of capability to it's not for everybody, right? So I want to preface that by, this isn't for everybody. Some people just want to come home and take their shoes off and be done with it, right? They're not going to be the ones that want to be a landlord. You actually have to have a desire to be a landlord for this to make sense. Right? And I could tell that they had that kind of like little thing that could potentially be something that they're interested in. So I say, hey, have you ever thought about investing in multifamilies? I think you'd be shocked with how little you need to get into one of these with, and how it could change your economic outlook. So first is was a client that made about $100,000 a year. He was looking to purchase single family or condo, and so is what you can afford to borrow, right? That's just a conservative, nice number. It's real easy. So if I make $50,000, I can borrow $200,000, right? On top, then I add my down payment on top of that, and I know my purchase price range, right? This individual was making $100,000, and so clearly he was looking for about $360,000 condo, which would have had a monthly obligation of around $2,800. That was right in line with what he was paying in rent. So obviously that made sense for him. But we educated him on multifamilies. And what did he do? He went and bought a $740,000 multifamily, lived in one unit, rented out the other 3, and was $300 a month cash positive. So if we just look at that one example in itself, he went from a $2,800 obligation to being $300 a month positive. So that's a $3,000 net change a month, annually, which basically equates to, if you factor in what Uncle Sam in the state of Illinois is going to take out. I just gave him a $50,000 a year job. Okay, second job. All right, second example, and this is going to highlight the difference between 3 and 4 flats a little bit better. So this individual made $60,000 a year, was looking to purchase a condo, 280 range, was going to have a $2,100 a month obligation, but instead she found a 3 flat. That purchase price, right? But at the end of the day, her net obligation was $471, right? So instead of paying $2,100 a month, she lives in a similar type space and only has a monthly obligation of $470 a month, and that's pre-tax, right? We're not even getting into the tax benefit, which we'll get into a little bit when I show the itemized breakdowns. And then the last one, which I tell people, this is my favorite one all the time. So this individual was a Comcast repairman that came to my house. It was in the backyard. I was like, man, that's a big house. I was like, yeah, I did it by buying multifamilies. It's like, you could do that too. And he's like, no, I can't. I'm like, well, you got a job, right? So there's a couple of check marks that we got to make sure. Number one, you got a job. Do you have decent credit, and do you have some money saved up for your down? So we went through that, first. You got a job. How much you make? I make about $48,000. Good. Okay. How much do you have saved up for your down payment? I don't have enough. I need to save up more. I get $10,000. I'm like, that's plenty, right? How's your credit? As it should be. I probably need to improve it. Like, what's your credit score? I think it's like 680. I'm like, that's more than sufficient. So come to the office on Monday. Let's get you pre-approved. We'll find you a building real quick. So initially he was thinking, like, I'm just going to get a single family, right? Payment. Nope. Now this is a 4 flat again. he found one in an up and coming neighborhood that he bought for $300,000, lives payment free, and is actually $200 a month cash positive. So on the lower, what a game changer going from an obligation to being cash positive, right? And you're going to see a really, really good success story of somebody in this range that followed our plans, and you're just going to be shocked on how well they're doing today. More detail of the transaction, because I believe that if you don't see it with your eyes, you're not going to believe it. So this is taken directly from the transaction itself. I got the clients okay to share these pieces of information without going into property address or anything like that themselves. But you can see that this person, his monthly obligation was $4,900 a month, and he lived in one of the units and rented out the other three. And you can see the rents right here directly from the appraisal. This was all, he didn't have to do any improvements, lived in one unit, lived in the $2,000 unit, and got basically enough to cover the mortgage and be cash positive. As soon as he moves out, this is how much he's going to bring in net, $6,700. So it's going to be positive cash flow by at least $1,800 a month the second he moves out. If we do return on investment based on how much he put in, it's a 56% return on investment if you factor in the deduction, which means the fact that you own rental income property, you get to file a separate schedule on your tax return, which affords you a bunch more deductions. And even though this thing is basically covering all of its obligations, because of things like depreciation and other things that you're able to write off, it looks like this property is technically on his tax returns losing him money. So he gets to lower his tax bracket and gets to take Uncle Sam's hand just a little bit more out of his pocket, right? All right, so now the three unit example. I try to tell people I give you both the 3 and 4 unit examples because it's all what's available in your market. There's not always going to be a 4 flat available for you to pounce on. So you got to look at what's available at the time. If it's a good deal on a 3 flat, and I'll show you some numbers where 3 flats and 2 flats worked out. But statistically, it's the 4 flat that you would like to start off with if you can. All right. So this is a 3 unit example we gave. $471 a month obligation. You can see that what the monthly payment was, what the total rents were, and what would be the cash positiveness once they leave. So kind of like go back to the 4 flat being cash positive, 3 flat being cash positive, making up the difference on the 2 flat, and then all those helping to pay for the single family. And then going back to our last example with the Comcast driver, I just want to highlight this. This goes into how little people need to pull something like this off. So we went over the details, right? He's living $200 a month cash positive, rate of return, ROI when you factor in depreciation. But I just want to bring your attention to this. So he put down, so cash towards deposit, that's earnest money. He had $2,900 of earnest money. Now, we structure contracts with our agents to make sure that we're maximizing a lot of things. One of them being a seller credit towards closing costs. So you'll see that in there. And then Cook County tax prorations. But if you come down to what this individual needed to close, $1,985. So he bought this building with $5,000. This is his monthly obligation, right? And this are the rents that he's receiving for each of the units. He's living in one, renting out the other 3, $200 a month cash positive. This is what it would be if he moved out, right? So it'd be $1,200 a month cash positive. But he bought the building, I can't say enough, with $5,000. And if those people that know how a mortgage works because you have one is, so you close on the 30th of the month, right? Which is exactly what he did. Your mortgage payment doesn't begin to the full next month. So, I'm just using an example. He closed February 28th. March 1st, he got $2,400 in rent from his tenants. So his net before his first mortgage payment, he actually only needed about $2,400 to close on this property after 1 day, because he got $2,400 back on the first month's rent. Okay. Now, this is another example of how, from wide ranges. So we had a $300,000 floor flat. This is another higher end multifamily, and it had a nice little twist that even made it better for the client. But we can see, like, they bought the place for $707,000, which is the FHA loan limit. They had $10,000 worth of earnest money, and they got a seller credit, tax prorations all lined up. They bought this $700,000 building for a total of $18,360, right? So, just over 2.25% of the purchase price to buy this place. Same situation, obligation, rents covering the obligation. What was unique about this transaction is that this particular building had an in-law basement unit, right? Now, we can't use those in the calculations because in-laws technically, have to be, leased out a very, very unique way. But she was getting $650 a month for this in-law, right? So, that had this lady $800 a month cash positive instead of paying what she's paying in rent, $1,800 a month, right? So same thing, close at the end of the month. So she received about $4,000 in subsequent rents the first of the month. So before she had to make her first mortgage payment, her probably net, net amount in was about $14,000 or 2% of the purchase price. So it shows you can use it on a wide range. It just needs to fit in there. All right. Now, another piece that most people don't know is about this thing called the FHA 203K, which, I'm sorry, I'll definitely, send you this because I know nobody can read the numbers on here. You need a magnifying glass. But when you do and you zoom in, it basically says what I'm going to go over, right? It just gives you the proof that this is an actual closing statement from a client that bought a $470,000 multifamily using FHA, got $100,000 to fix it up. It was already in good shape. So they just maximized the kitchens and baths so they could increase the rents. And it fell in the same program with FHA, which you only need to put 3.5% down. And we maximized the credit. So a total of $570,000 worth of financing. This person only needed a total of $14,000 to close. They renovated the units super quick, because they were just doing kitchens and bath, and had it all leased up in 60 days. And it was $1,500 a month cash positive with them living in it, right? So I just think, like, people don't know about these programs, and if they knew, the fantastic, way that you can leverage them, you're talking about another 2%, total cash investment to have something that is producing income. Okay, so that's the FHA 203K. Now, here's a really good success story from somebody that I talked to about 4 years ago about doing this. So, this guy makes about $48,000. Has not made more than that. He has, he works in the leasing business, right? So, that's their income, right? But he bought this property 2016. Refinanced it in 2019. Now he found, he got it in a good area, of course, did some minor improvements, increased the rents, but it just shows you like what is possible. So 2019, he refinanced and he pulled out $70,000. He eliminated mortgage insurance because he had an FHA loan. But if you look at what his mortgage payment went to, went to $2,275. This is a 3-flat. And even though he pulled $70,000 out, it's still cash flowing by about $1,600. Same guy. So he's young. He's like 25, 26 years old. He's got a check for 70 grand. God help us. He bought the 4-flat and the 3-flat. So this is his 4-flat that he lives in. Purchased it in 2017, refinanced again in 2019. Look how much money he pulled out. 193. Now, 193,000. Now, again, these are unique, right? He bought in like an area that just popped, right? But he was willing to look at that area, and he went in and he got it. Appreciation ripped up, and he took advantage of it. So he refinanced. His mortgage payment went up, but if you look at like what he's getting in terms of rental income, he's still $1,000 a month cash positive. And now this guy, he told me like he went to the bank, deposited both these checks, and the teller was like, "What's going on here? You just deposited $200,000, $270,000. Like, what do you do for a living?" And he's like, "I'm a leasing agent." Yeah. So it just shows you kind of what the potential could be. So more examples of people coming in with very little money. This is somebody bought a 3-flat with $4,615 and lives payment free. So again, $1,000 worth of earnest money. You see the common theme. Seller credit's the key to this. Cash from borrower, $3,600. So total obligation, $4,615. Same type of situation. Close at the end of the month. You're going to get some rental money to even bring that down. I think at the end of the day, this individual needed to close with about $1,000 net 1 or 2 days after. Okay. Same situation. This is a 2-flat where the numbers work.
Ryan, we want to save some time for some questions because
my last slide.
Okay, great.
So this is somebody bought a 2-flat, and their monthly obligation $145 a month. So very unique. The key here is you must stay within the FHA loan limits for a 4-flat, for a 3-flat, for a 2-flat, and for the single family. Okay. That being said.
Okay, so one of the things, yeah, that's a good slide to have. And remember, we're recording this, so you guys will all have all of this. Plus, as I always I will send you the list of Ryan, send after this webinar, of course, I will send you all Ryan's information as well. But Ryan, I have a couple quick questions, so maybe we'll stop sharing your screen and we can see your face again.
Sure.
See, and we can also see everybody else's face if you'd like. So the first thing when Ryan pointed this out to me, we did like a little run through, is I said most of our PowerHouse Smart members and guests probably already own a single family home. So how can they do this? And one of the things that Ryan pointed out to me is if they have children or a family member that might want to be the resident of that property, or if they can afford to do this. Is that correct, Ryan?
Correct. And so it's more about education. What I find now when I tell parents that have kids that are just exiting college or are already out of college that are renting, this is their path. Or if you know this ahead of time, you can put this little piece in their ear, like, hey, when you get out, we want to help you do this and create a path to wealth for you and for your family down the road. Like what I saw in college when they kind of sparked this in me was I saw a bunch of first generation immigrants that their family came over, they bought property, and that property basically paid for their college, paid for their wedding, paid for a bunch of stuff. But on top of it, one of the ancillary benefits was like those people that were in that group, they picked up accounting faster, they picked up marketing faster, they picked up all these things. I was like, how does that come so naturally? Like, well, my family's owned property, and so I've really been in business since I came out of the womb, and I just saw that as I think there's people that come out of the womb and they're introduced to business and they just run with it, and their families have taught up to them. So this is a kind of a good thing for that.
And Ryan, the other thing I wanted to just point out that you and I talked about is a lot of us are in the remodeling business, or we certainly have access to remodeling. So this is, we can also do those renovations on a property for a lot less money. Plus it's revenue, which is great for whoever the remodeling firm is. So there's a lot of positives here. I'm going to open it up. If you'd like to put your question in the chat, or I'm going to unmute and you want to raise your hand on the screen, I open it up for questions. Does anybody want to start off with a question? Anybody got a question? So I know, Ryan, you went through this really quickly. I think it's excellent. I actually have family members that I asked to be on this, to join us, and I've recorded this for them so that they can also watch it again later, because it's a lot of information in 30 minutes. But most of everybody on this call is in our industry, so I think they probably got it. And I believe we've got Justin, who's a realtor. Justin, any comments?
Yeah, first of all, great presentation, Ryan. I wish I would have known you when I graduated college and started in real estate. This would have been a great path for me. But, question that I have for you with some existing clients is I do have a lot of clients that are looking to get into investing in multifamily, but they're already homeowners. They're still young. They still see this as a great path to wealth. What would your advice be to those people?
I can just tell you what I did when I had acquired a few properties, but still thought, man, this is an amazing product. So I had a couple of good friends of mine that I said, hey, I see, like, it was actually one of my college roommates that moved in with me post college that rented from me. And I was like, hey man, you're a Chicago cop, you make a good dollar. Like, you see what I've done here. Why don't we go in on the next one? I'll show you how to do it. I'll give you the down payment. You and I partner up on it, and in 12 to 18 months, I'll refinance this property out because I know I'm going to add value and equity to it that I can refinance it as investment property, and then I'll peel you off. And you know what? I'm going to give you X amount. I'm going to give you $10,000. I'm going to show you how to do this yourself, and I'm going to pay you to come alongside me on this ride. Absolutely. And it was funny. I thought that I would lose them the second I was done giving money. And I did this with a couple.
Hi,
people.
Sorry.
Oh,
Okay.
What I saw is that they would take this $10,000 check. Like one buddy bought a brand new Saab, right? And he's like, no, I love living with you, man. I'll just keep on paying you rent. Like, you want to do this again? Like, yeah, let's do it again. And so that was an arrangement that I worked out with a friend, a trusted, a trusted family member. I always put in a very simple one-page partnership agreement just to make things, very clear cut. It's always, the phrase is, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So just putting some, rules and regulations together, not that you'll ever need it if you're really with somebody that you trust, but it's just nice to have.
Great. Ryan, one of the things I asked you before we decided to put this together is to pull a couple listings that were actually properties that could be used for this. How often will we be able to, maybe I'll ask Justin and Millie, like, how often are 2 flats, 3 flats, and 4 flats available in Chicago?
So last check was, sorry.
I'll let Millie answer.
Okay.
A lot. They're hard to come by, so when they're out there, they go quickly.
Right,
Right now, that's going to be torn down, but we still want to go in and do an inspection, because since it's going to be torn down, there's still time to do plans and stuff like that, so we can keep tenants in there and keep some income coming in. That's the reason we want to.
Right. And in this particular model, I know you came late, this is actually to rent out those units and live rent free in your own unit. That's what Ryan's program is. And so it's meant for people who can get that FHA loan, put very little money down, do renovations on the property and rent it out. So you'll see the presentation I recorded. I'll send it to you. It's only a 25-minute presentation.
I think that's very hard to do with 10% down or very little down, to get in there and get enough rent out of the 2 unit. Is it 1 more unit or 2 more?
I'm going to show you the presentation when we're done, and then Ryan.
I'm late, I'm sorry.
That's okay. And Ryan is happy to meet. He said after this, because we decided to make this a short but sweet, he would meet with any of you who would like to talk about this more. Because, and you're right, Millie, like most of the people you and I know, Millie, don't want to live in an area that's up and coming. We want to live in, River North, the Gold Coast, Old Town, so this is not that easy to find, but it is possible as long as you're within those FHA limits. Brian Ransky, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. I had a question for Ryan. I've got my real estate license. I'm a co-op banker. I've done transactions on 2 flats, 3 flats, and 4 flats about 9 or 10 times in the last few years. not only twice have they been with owner occupied, kind of under your model. But the questions I have from potential tenants, potential purchasers now are the hesitation with the COVID situation. And so, what is your perspective on that in terms of the uncertainty surrounding the market now?
So post closing, like I can tell people, like I've made every mistake you can in owning multifamilies. So I'm going to act as your resource to basically don't do this, don't do that. Obviously screening of proper tenants and making sure they hit certain metrics to prevent defaults on rent is paramount. You want to get a couple, like we walk them through a landlord's 101 class, not like the standard Fannie Mae or any of those programs, but like a real life, like nuts and bolts. Here's what to expect, right? And here's what you should be looking for in terms of tenants, and what they should be making in relationship to what the rental is that they're paying.
Right. My question specifically is, what do you think that looks like now with all the uncertainty around the coronavirus?
So my personal buildings, I've not had one default, right? And I think that probably goes into properly screening, not getting tenants that I'm worried about their income. Now, I will say, as always, it's a long-term game, right? Yeah. And so would you run into some bumps and along the way? Yeah. So you want to be properly prepared with reserves and everything, the proper insurance, everything to cover yourself to not spread yourself thin. So I still, regardless of this, this current situation, if you do things right, you are putting yourself on a path to create income producing assets. So I think there's opportunity actually in difficult times like this. I think a lot of the most prolific investors of all time say you buy when there's blood in the streets. That's where that's where you get your opportunities. But again, be prepared for those rainy days. So
yeah. So Ryan and I talked also about you kind of need your team of people if you're going to go on down this path. And one might be the person that you're partnering with who's going to live in that unit, because all of us, again, are not typically the person who's looking to live in a multi-unit building. But you need a good realtor, which is why I'm so glad realtors are on our call here. You need a remodeler. And if you aren't a remodeler, you need a good remodeler. You need a good attorney. You need great insurance. You need a great lender.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's your team. Just like everything else we talk about at PowerHouse Smart, it's your team. And so Ryan is an expert in this area, which is why I thought it was so interesting for him to give us a snapshot of what he's been doing and helping. And I just think it's a really interesting model, and you always need your team though, right, Ryan?
Absolutely.
Yes, go ahead, Justin.
So I think, and Brian, maybe you can chime in on this, but I think one of the challenges right now that Brian may have been alluding to is you are not in Illinois, you're not currently allowed to show rental or tenant occupied units. Mm-hmm. So when you're looking at a 3 or a 4 flat where 3 of the units are occupied by tenants, how do you go about evaluating whether that's the correct property without being able to actually get in and see those properties?
So hopefully they've done they've done the either virtual tour beforehand, so you can see what the breakdown of the units are. HUD actually has a link that'll tell you what the fair market rent in every zip code in the United States, whether it's a studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, or 4 bedroom. So if you could get the square footage and the breakdown, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, you can underwrite and analyze it based on the numbers. So the beauty of this is basically you're looking at the numbers only. It's strictly an investment, right? So you're not in love with this building. You don't hate this building.
You don't have to be.
You look at it for X, Y, and Z, and those are numbers of like how much money I could generate, what are the vacancy rates in those neighborhoods, right? And does it make sense for me if I live in there? Can I budget on this, right? So it's like we were talking earlier, or you were saying with Millie, are you going to find a building in Lincoln Park? No. Are you going to find a building in Lakeview? No. Wrigleyville? No. Where are you going to be? You're going to be in those up and coming neighborhoods. Andersonville, Jefferson Park, Portage Park, South Bronzeville. Can't even touch Bronzeville anymore. It's like blown up, right? Woodlawn. But you're going to expand your horizon because you see the economic benefit. You know, of course, I want to live across the street from, you know, my favorite restaurant downtown Chicago. But if I take this path, I'll get there. And you know what? I won't have a mortgage payment when I get there.
Okay, all right. Well, with that said, we are at the end of our short presentation here, but I am going to send everybody a link to this so you can watch it later. Brian already wants to meet with you, Ryan. He's got 2 clients he wants you to make this presentation to help them get unstuck. So that's awesome. I thought I was really impressed and I loved it. And I actually, like I said, I shared it with my family. So I hope this helps you. And Ryan, thanks for being a great PowerHouse Smart member. Thanks for all of you who are on this call. And next week, we're also going to continue the education process here. And we're going to learn from one of our other lenders, Brian Jessen, a little bit more about the jumbo mortgage loan. Completely different than this FHA opportunity, but awesome education for all of us. And check out the PowerHouse Smart website for more events. And great to see you all. Wish you much health and happiness over the weekend. Happy Friday. Ryan, thank you very much. Great job. All
Thank you,
right.
Brian.
Bye.
Thank you, Jill.
Thanks, Ryan.